Hello and welcome to another watercolor tutorial video. If you are new to my channel, my name is Sandra and I'm a watercolor artist and illustrator from the Netherlands. And on my channel, I like to share watercolor tutorial videos with you, as well as other creative tutorial videos or creative business videos, anything that has to do with creating art, being creative, but also topics that have to do anything with mindfulness, happiness, and mental health in general. So in this video, we stay focused on sketching and painting a really cute owl with watercolor paint. So first we start with the sketching, and as always, to make it easier for you, I always add an outline of the drawing. You can download it in the link in the description below, and you can use that as a reference or to trace it. But of course, you can just try and sketch this as well, or you can find yourself an image of an owl. It doesn't need to be exactly the same as this one. And then if you feel like you need to practice the sketching, you can always use cheaper paper like printer paper or a sketchbook, and then when you feel ready and confident, you can move to the watercolor paper and do your sketch there. For the sketching, I always use an HB pencil also to put it on the watercolor paper, and I use a kneading eraser to lift off the excess pencil lines before I start with painting. And then the painting part is just like filling out, painting in, like coloring in a coloring sheet. So try to stay within those lines, and I started with burnt umber, like a brown color, to paint these areas of the owl, and I try to stay within those lines so that a bit later on I can add other colors in the other areas. And well, maybe I'm lazy, or no, what's the right word? I'm impatient and I just don't want to wait for the paint to dry before I can move on. So I thought myself that if I stay within those lines and I make sure that the paint doesn't touch each other, so while the paint is still wet and you will touch an area with another color, then you know that it's going to blend in, and that's something that you want to avoid. So that's why you need to stay within those lines, and then at the same time it creates this really cool effect. And of course, it does happen at times that your paint blends in, so that you have different colors blending in on places where you didn't really want to. If that happens a few times and the areas are not too big, then that's all right. That's the characteristic of watercolor paint. That's actually something I really like about this medium. It's just that there are occasions where you really don't want it to happen. So then you need to be extra careful. And if you really don't want to take the risk, of course, then it's always better to let your paint dry before you add another layer. And I usually have 2 or 3 layers when it comes to my watercolor paintings. So at one point I stop and let everything dry before I move on to my next layer. So I use that for some details, or when I really know that if I go paint a certain area and it touches the wet paint of the other area, then I really will be very unhappy if that blends in together. So the thing with this watercolor illustration is that the owl is brown and the tree is brown as well. So I used burnt umber for both, but I also used some burnt sienna to try and give both a slightly different color. I also added some light brown in the owl to make it a bit lighter. As you can see that the branch, there is some raw sienna there at the left bottom, at the left paw of the owl, that blended in with the light brown of the belly of the owl, and I'm alright with that. At this point, this really looks very nice. I'm using indigo blue to paint the background. Now, what I usually do, well, maybe not always, but mostly, is paint a background and let it dry and then go over it with the illustration that I'm making. But at this point, I already painted the owl when I decided that I wanted to have a background color. So this means that I need to be very careful when I go around that owl, and this time I really want to make sure that I don't touch that owl because I don't want that dark blue color blending with the brown of the owl. Now I see that at the left wing, that's already happening very, very gentle, so maybe I can live with that, but that wasn't supposed to happen. So you see, watercolor paint doesn't need to be perfect. Art doesn't need to be perfect. So don't let that scare you. Just try it, do it. And it's also an experiment. Try it out, see what happens. And if you feel like it didn't work, then just try it again. Learn from what you just did and do it again. Learning how to paint and how to sketch, it's a skill and you can develop it by doing it very often. And if you like doing it, that's when you do it very often. So that's why people say that, they talk about people having talent, but people having talent basically means that those people have something that they love doing so much, therefore they do it very often and therefore they get skilled. That's how it works. Well, at least in my opinion. So some parts of the owl are still wet, but those leaves, they have dried up. So I can use a very, very small brush to add some details on there. And I also like to add some lines, some details on the tree. This is always my favorite part of an illustration because those details always bring an art piece to life. Really gives it that extra thing. And yeah, I must say that I really, really start to love this owl. I think it's a cutie. I have been telling myself that I wanted to paint more owls, and so I'm really happy that this popped in my mind this morning when I was wondering what I wanted to paint today. I really hope that you like this topic as well, and if you have any requests or ideas for a tutorial video, please let me know. Drop it in the comments and then I might make a video about it. I'm always open for suggestions. And another thing is that I really, really, really would love to see what you create. So if you have been following along with this video and you created a really cute owl yourself, then please share it on your socials and tag me at Sandra Art Studio and use the hashtag #CreateWithSandras. This way I get to see what you create, and I always love to see that. It is so inspiring and motivating for me to create more content. And of course, if you share it on your socials, then also there are other people who see it as well and might get inspired to join us and create beautiful things. So please do that, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video, that you enjoyed creating this owl, that you're satisfied with your result. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, then please do. See you in the next one.